Well, it wasn't so long after that romantic night on the telethon that you actually became a mother.
That's true. I think you remember that evening very well.
Well, rather, yes.
They should never put us on late that late together with nothing to do and nobody watching. Father of my child.
His name does begin with M.
Yes, that's true. And he takes after you. There's a little chair connected to his behind. Just like you.
Little Max.
Yes.
Max.
You never come to visit. Max. I don't want to talk about it a lot because it was not the most pleasant experience. Girls, I think you know. God's great gag on women.
Was it bad?
No, it was, you know, they never tell you, and I didn't want to read the pamphlets, but I had heard that it was like sitting on the Eiffel Tower and spinning. Yes.
So, it's Max, son of Wax.
Yes. Max by Wax.
What do you have for him in way of plans for his career?
I whisper to him every night, entrepreneur, entrepreneur. I hope he takes care of me in my old age.
Well, what about sausage skin manufacturer? That was good enough for your father.
And I will hand it on to him. An empire of pig bladders, that's true. I don't think he'll want it, but...
Do you...
What? Speak to me, Mike.
He's
so tense.
I keep
Listen
remembering
up,
that.
Mikey, listen up.
I remember that night on the telethon, that's the trouble. Yes. Do you keep close links with your parents?
I have to call them just to check, you know, that the inheritance is still cooking over. I call them about twice a week.
In America?
Yes. How's those stocks coming, I say. Then I hang up.
Are they proud grandparents?
Well, my father thinks this is what women were put on the earth for. It was a little like being a trout being kicked upstream all my life. I mean, I've done my womanly chore. I'm like just an old empty now. You know, I can roll over and die. So I fulfilled my woman's role. I think a lot of fathers think that way. You know, it didn't matter about anything else. Career, forget it. This was the ultimate gift item. An egg. It's so simple.
And up until now, they were not proud parents, are you saying?
Proud, but it's, you know, it's like, who am I kidding? You know, I have one meaning on earth and that's it. He never took it seriously what I did for a living, ever. I used to be in the RSC, you know, I even did that for my father. I even put on those underpants and gave myself a cleavage and got into the back door of the RSC. And we were up there and we had a big dinner after one of the shows. And my father always, you know, it's never enough. And he said, no, you're all Ruby's little friends. I'll pay for dinner. And there was Michael Horton and Jane Love Paterni and Charles was going, no, Mr. Wax, really, we're adults. You don't have to pay for it. He goes, no, you're Ruby's little friends. I'll pay.
Oh,
and then he said what he always says, which is, listen, when you're famous, you can pay for me. And Michael Horton, a shaky hand came and went, but I am. And my father went, like this.
Oh, that must have gone down very well.
Oh, no, I could hold pencils in my backside for many years.
If you had stayed with the RSC, you could have become Dame Ruby. He would have been proud of that. That would sound good. But they have escaped to Miami. You did this lovely documentary which included your parents down there in Miami. The lifestyle there is different, isn't it?
Than what?
Than anything else in the
we've ever
world.
seen. Well, it's so ripe for comedy that I had to take a documentary crew down there. I don't know if you know about Miami Beach, but this is where sort of old retirees go to die. My father always says it's sort of the only cemetery with a sea view. And they sit around the pool waiting to die or eat, whichever comes first.
But they like it.
But they love it. This is the last of the American dream. This is paradise. But I was very rebellious about it. I didn't fit in. I was like something from another species brought in. And my father would say, make friends, Ruby, make friends. And I said, Dad, I can't. He says, in a whole state you can't meet people? Go! And he'd send me down the beach to find a single dentist. Somebody with a single dentist. Sniffing out credit cards.
I noticed that they had the plastic still on the back of the seat. Did they rent that place for a few months?
No, that's our condo. And everything my mother covers in plastic. So if it's hot and sticky, you could leave with the dining room area connected to your thighs.
Your father had a shiny skin. That was plastic. Good Lord.
There's a great scene where there's actually an argument and you hear and then it's going on.
Good. But perhaps you too one day, Ruby.
I will end up that way, yes. I will be a stain remover.
You work here, but isn't L.A. really the place for you?
L.A.?
Los Angeles.
No, I was there. I came back in a box. It didn't work out at all for me. They didn't really appreciate my sense of humor. I don't know what it was. I didn't fit in. And, see, the whole of America... because I've been away so long, I can sort of see it from outside. Whereas if I had sort of gone along with it all, I wouldn't understand the fine irony of the country. But like in LA, the obsession with staying young. You know, everybody has to look young. You know, this country, you don't care what you look like. Look at you.
Right.
It's an old country. You don't care if you look old. Most of your famous people are dead. What do you care? But LA, you have to look. You know, this continuous youthful expression is quite frightening. And I'd find myself, you know, because I would try to fit in. I was frightened that if my behind wasn't hard enough to rebound a tennis ball, they would shoot me on sight. So I would go to those aerobics classes, sobbing. Go away, cellulite, go away. You know, this became the meaning of life. No, eventually I couldn't take it. Happy Days started to look like a very deep program to me. I knew it.
Now, you took your son on a prenatal trip to Russia. How pregnant were you?
8 months in Russia, yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, I was doing another documentary, as I did in Miami. And, well, the story of the film, and we used this storyline to continue me through Russia, was that I couldn't get work in this country. And my career had hit the skid, so my agent says she's got a big booking for me. And I go, big like in America big? And she goes, no, bigger. And I go, what could be bigger than America? And then you hear the balalaikas. And I go on a tour of doing stand-up comedy through some of the Russian seediest resorts and have this reaction. That's what I have from one coast to the other.
They liked you that much?
They loved me in Russia. They loved me. Nothing more attractive than an 8-month pregnant woman dressed as Uncle Sam and doing really the worst jokes.
That's going to be good. That interpreter looked quite funny and very...
She is really an interpreter. I mean, we base what happens on the rec. You know, that's when we go before we actually film. And then we use what really happens, but now done with the documentary crew. And she met me at the airport. I said, are you dressed as an airport official? She said, this is Calvin Klein. And it turns out every piece of item she had was either Versace, Valentino, Armani. She's the mistress of one of the most famous poets in Russia. So by the end of the film, she's loaning me handbags. You know, I feel sorry for the pudgy American. And this is the story that leads through.
I have a feeling that only you could have found her.
Yes, I do. I have a scent I put out. It's a great relationship between her and I. Because it's really, you know, what an American would react to, the opposite. But she gives me as good as I give her. You know, as I read the labels on the back of her clothes and then just go perestroika my ass, you know, and she has a great line to come back. She has some good lines coming back.
I've had another romantic thought. If your child had been born there, as he might well, 8 months pregnant,
yeah.
you could have had to stay
I
there.
would have sucked in and walked back over that border. You would have seen something dragging behind me through customs that wasn't very appetizing.
His legs might have been born in Russia. You know, it's very difficult. What would your father's reaction have been if his grandson had been born in Russia? Because that's where he is from.
He escaped Russia, and then I go back to Russia. He would have gone in like Rambo. You would have heard the machine guns at the airport.
Bring him out.
Yeah, get him out of here.
If you had to make a choice between Miami or Moscow, what would it be?
Well, this is, you know, why it was interesting to do both films, because between that spans all of humanity as we know it. The interesting thing is that Russia, inside these people are like nothing in this country. I mean, there isn't a shallow word spoken, not in the grocery store, you know, not asking for change for a ruble. You know, they speak from somewhere down there, Seoul, Dostoevsky. Outside, there's nothing. It's desolate. In Miami, outside, it's paradise. Inside, a Kleenex, you know, thin. And so that's interesting, the two opposites. I'm being very general. I would like to apologize to, you know, Americans, but that's the general impression.
But given the choice, which is less...
Well, it's
bearable?
Every time I'd say, you know, I do interview people during the show, you know, Refuseniks and Hooker and in Russia, and I say, what's your ultimate dream? And they went Miami Beach.